Usually when we look at theology or eschatology, the study of the end times, it can be very abstract.
It's often just a list of signs, warnings, things that are supposed to happen way off in the future.
Right, it feels a bit detached. But the stack of sources we're looking at today it's completely different. We're not looking at a prophecy in that traditional sense. We're looking at a travel log.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
A first-person eyewitness account from a sailor who claims he met the Antichrist face to face and lived to tell the tale.
It is one of the most singular narratives in the Islamic tradition. We're talking about the Hadith of Tamim al-Dari. And you're right, it reads less like a religious text and more like, I don't know, a survival thriller.
It's got everything. A storm, a lost island, a hairy beast, a man in chains. But our mission today isn't just to tell a ghost story. We need to unpack what this figure, the Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, what he actually represents.
Because he's not just a physical monster, according to these texts. He's a test.
The ultimate test.
Exactly. The sources frame him as the false messiah. And the core conflict here, it isn't just good versus evil. It's truth versus illusion. It's about whether you can trust your own eyes when your eyes are lying to you.
That's the theme I want to keep coming back to, insight versus eyesight. But before we get to the philosophy, we have to start with the story itself. It's just so cinematic. We have this character, Tamim al-Dari. Who was he?
So Tamim al-Dari is a fascinating figure. At the time of this story, he was a Christian monk and also a merchant from Palestine.
Okay.
Later on, he converts to Islam and becomes a companion of the Prophet Muhammad, which is how the story gets recorded. But in this account, it's just a man on a boat.
He set sail with 30 men from the Lakim and Judum tribes.
Correct. And this is not a pleasure cruise. The sources describe a violent tossing. They get caught in a storm that doesn't just last for a few hours. They're lost at sea for a full month.
30 days. Just pause on that for a second. 30 days of being thrown around in the middle of the ocean. You've lost all sense of direction. You probably think you're going to die. The psychological state of these men must have been shattered.
Absolutely. They're desperate. And finally, at sunset, which is such a classic dramatic setting, they're thrown onto the shore of an island that isn't on any of their maps.
So they get off the boat, probably just so happy to be on solid ground. But then they run into the welcoming committee, and this is where the visuals get really disturbing.
They encounter a creature. The text calls it al-Yasa.
And the description of this thing is wild. The sources say it was so covered in thick, abundant hair that the sailors couldn't tell its front from its back. They couldn't see a face.
Right. They have no idea if it's an animal or a demon. They are terrified. They actually ask it, "Woe to you, what are you?" And the creature speaks.
That's the part that gives you chills.
It does. It says, "I am al-Yasa."
Which translates roughly to the spy.
Exactly. It implies it's gathering intel. It's not the villain. It's the scout. And notice what it does. It doesn't attack them. It gives them instructions.
Yeah.
It tells them to go to a specific building, a monastery, a deer, because there's a man there who is waiting for their news with longing.
Which is almost creepier than if it had just attacked them. It's like it's ushering them into a trap. It's saying, oh, I'm not the one you need to worry about. The boss is inside.
It creates this immediate sense of dread. The men actually flee from the beast. They think it's a demon. They rush into this old, cracked monastery just to get away from it.
And inside, they find the main event. The man in the monastery.
And the descriptions here are very specific about his scale. They find a human, but the greatest human they had ever seen. And greatest here means largest in size and just. The most terrifying in constitution.
And he's not free to move around?
No, far from it. He's completely immobilized. The sources say he's bound heavily with iron, his hands are tied to his neck, and his knees are bound to his ankles. Just completely locked down.
So you have this giant, terrifying man chained up in a monastery on a lost island. And the first thing he does is start interrogating these sailors. But here's what I found so fascinating. You have this supernatural monster. But when he starts talking...
You sound like a geopolitical analyst.
Exactly. It's such a strange juxtaposition, isn't it? He doesn't scream or threaten them. He wants data. He starts fact-checking the state of the world. And these questions, they aren't random. The first thing he asks about are the palms of Beisan.
Right. Beisan is a region in Palestine. He asks, do they still bear fruit? The sailors say, yes, they do. And the chained man just says, soon they will not.
Then he asks about the Sea of Galilee, Lake Tiberias.
Same thing. He asks if there's still water in it. The men confirm it's full of water. And he warns that soon its water will dry up.
And the third one is the Spring of Zugar.
Same pattern. Do people still plant crops using its water? And the men say yes.
So if you look at this, he's tracking environmental changes. Drying lakes, failing crops. It's like he is checking off a list of ecological decline.
Which makes perfect sense for his endgame. He controls food and water. He needs the natural world to fail. He needs scarcity so that he becomes the only provider. He's tracking the market scarcity he intends to exploit.
That is a chilling thought. He's waiting for the market to crash. But then he shifts gears completely. He asks about the unlettered prophet.
Which refers to the Prophet Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
He asks because he has appeared yet. The sailors tell him, yes, he has left Mecca and settled in Yathrib, which is the old name for Medina, and that the Arabs have obeyed him.
And the changed man's reaction to this is surprisingly pragmatic.
It is. He says, it is better for them to obey this prophet. And that's the trigger. Once he confirms these signs, the environment, the politics, the arrival of the prophet, he reveals his identity.
Right.
He says, I am the Messiah Dajjal, and he declares that he will soon be permitted to leave his island.
What a cliffhanger for those sailors. They manage to escape and tell the story, which is how we have it. But this transitions us from the island story to the bigger picture of what happens when he gets out.
Absolutely. Once he's released, the narrative shifts from a survival story to a global apocalyptic event. The sources describe him physically as being one-eyed. Specifically, his right eye is described as looking like a floating grape.
A floating grape? That is a very specific, grotesque image.
It is. It implies a deformity, a lack of clear vision, maybe metaphorically as well. But there's another marker that's even more important. The texts say the letters KFR for kafir, or disbeliever, are written between his eyes.
And the interesting detail is you don't need to be literate to read it.
Correct. The sources state that every believer, whether they can read or not, will be able to see that word on his forehead.
It's almost like an augmented reality warning. If you're spiritually tuned in, you see the label. If you're not, you just see a charismatic leader.
Exactly. It's spiritual perception.
So he's released. He's got this appearance. How does he move? Because he's not just walking from town to town.
No, the speed is supernatural. The text says he will move across the earth like a cloud driven by the wind. He claims he'll visit every village and city in the world within 40 days.
40 days seems incredibly short for a world tour. But, and this is a big but, those are not normal days.
Right, this is the concept of time dilation. The prophet was asked about it, and the answer was one day like a year, one day like a month, one day like a week, and the rest of his days like your days.
Just pause on that. The first day he's out lasts for a full year. Can you imagine? The sun rises and just hangs there for months. The psychological horror of that alone is intense. Your circadian rhythms, sleep cycles, everything is broken.
Total disorientation. And the companions of the prophet, being very practical, asked a crucial question. They asked, during that day, that's like a year, is one day's prayer sufficient?
Because prayer is tied to the sun's movement. If the sun doesn't set, what do you do?
And the answer was so fascinatingly grounded. He said, no, estimate the time.
Estimate and pray. That is such a deep instruction. It means even when reality is melting down, when the sun itself seems broken, you stick to your internal clock. You maintain your discipline.
It's a defense mechanism. Don't look at the sky, look at your own schedule. Because if you only trust your eyes, you are going to get lost.
Now let's talk about why he's visiting all these places. He isn't sightseeing. He's bringing what the sources call the great fitna, the great trial. And this goes back to what you called weaponized economics.
This is the core of his danger. He targets people through their most basic needs, hunger and security. He comes to a people and invites them to follow him. If they believe, he commands the sky to rain, and it rains. He commands the earth to grow, and their crops flourish.
It's immediate gratification. He solves the famine. He solves the poverty.
But if they reject him, the opposite happens. They wake up to drought, their wealth is gone, their cattle die.
So he creates the problem, or waits for it, and then sells the solution. But it's a solution with a massive catch.
The biggest catch. And this is that ultimate reversal of reality. He brings with him what looks like a paradise and a hell. But the prophet warned, his fire is cool water and his garden is fire.
That's the real test. Your eyes see fire. Your survival instinct screams, run away. But the instruction is to close your eyes, lower your head, and jump into the fire.
Because his fire is the mercy. It's the ultimate test of trusting what you know over what you see. If you chase his paradise, you end up in punishment.
So he's sweeping across the globe, flipping reality upside down. But the sources mention there are safe zones. He can't go everywhere.
Correct. Two specific sanctuaries, Mecca and Medina. The Dajjal is forbidden from entering these two cities.
What stops him? A wall.
Angels. The sources say angels stand at every gate with drawn swords, barring his entry. He physically cannot cross the threshold.
But there's a dramatic event at Medina. He can't get in, so he camps outside.
Right, on the salt flats, the Sabkafaya. And since he can't enter, the city itself reacts. It will experience 3 tremors, 3 earthquakes.
And the purpose of that, it sounds like he's shaking people out.
That's exactly it. It's a filter. The shaking causes the hypocrites and disbelievers, the ones hiding their true allegiance, to flee in panic. They run right out to him, and the city is cleansed, leaving only the sincere believers.
Wow. Talk about pressure. Staying put requires serious nerve.
It does. And for those outside the protected cities, it's even more dire. People flee to the mountains to escape him.
And there's a specific weapon mentioned for those people, right? Not a sword.
No, it's words. The memorization of the opening verses of Surah Al-Kahf, the chapter of the cave, the tradition says reciting these protects a person from his illusions. It's like a shield for your mind.
So the world is in crisis. The Dajjal has dominated almost everything. It feels like checkmate. But this deep dive has an end game. This isn't where it ends.
No, this is the build-up to the climax. The turning point happens in Damascus, specifically at the White Minaret in the east of the city.
The timing is very specific in the texts.
Very. It's dawn. The believers are gathered for morning prayer, Fajr, and just then, Jesus, son of Mary, Isa in the Islamic tradition, descends.
The visual description is incredible.
It is. He's described with his hands on the wings of 2 angels. Water drips from his head as if he just bathed, like pearls or beads of silver.
And he arrives right at the prayer congregation.
He does, and there's this moment of protocol the sources highlight. The leader of the Muslims, implied to be the Mahdi, steps back to let Jesus lead. But Jesus refuses. He says, no, you are leaders over one another, honoring the community. He prays behind the imam.
But after the prayer, the doors open, the Dajjal is there with his army, and this is my favorite part. You expect a duel, a big, epic fight.
The 2 titans clashing.
That is not what happened.
No. This is where the power dynamic completely flips. For all his speed, all his illusions, all his control, the moment Dajjal sees Jesus, the game is over. The sources say he begins to dissolve like salt dissolves in water.
That's it. He just melts.
He melts. Just the sight of Jesus undoes him. It's a powerful metaphor. A lie cannot exist in the presence of absolute truth. The illusion just falls apart.
He runs, though. He tries to get away.
He does. He realizes his time is up, and Jesus pursues him. The chase ends at a place called the Gate of Lod in modern-day Palestine.
And that is the end of the false Messiah.
Yes. Jesus strikes him with a spear. The deception is shattered. The fake paradise and hell just disappear. The world is forced to face reality again.
And what comes after? Because usually post-apocalyptic stories are pretty bleak.
They are. But the sources here paint a very different picture. It's remarkably peaceful. Justice returns. The earth brings forth its blessings, so no more artificial famine. Safety becomes so absolute that they use the image of lions and camels grazing together.
A return to Eden, it sounds like.
It's a restoration of balance. The hostility is gone, swords are sheathed. It's a time of tranquility.
But there is a little footnote at the end of one of our sources. The story isn't completely over.
Right. Just when peace is established, the sources mention the arrival of Gog and Magog. But that, well, that is a deep dive for another day. For the Dajjal, the death at the Gate of Lod is the end.
So let's zoom out. We've gone from a storm-tossed island to a global crisis to this divine intervention. It's such a powerful image, this terrifying monster who controlled everything, just dissolving like salt.
It shows that his power was entirely dependent on people believing the lie. Once the truth arrived, he had no substance.
So bringing this back to us, listening right now, we don't have a giant on an island. But the core of these texts, it's about perception. We live in an age where reality is becoming very slippery. Deepfakes, AI, curated lives on social media.
We are constantly presented with things that look like water but might just be fire.
The Dajjal is the ultimate symbol of that surface-level success. He has the food, he has the water, he has the paradise, but it's all fake.
Exactly. In the narrative, the people who survive are the ones who can read the warning signs. That kafir on the forehead, even when their stomach is empty and their eyes are dazzled. It's about having a compass that works when the magnetic pole has flipped.
And there's a specific tool mentioned for that compass, the prayer?
Yes. The sources emphasize a specific prayer to be said before ending daily worship, to seek refuge in God from the trial of the Dajjal. It's a daily reminder to stay sharp.
So the takeaway from Tamim Aldari's story isn't just about fearing a monster, it's about calibrating your own compass. When the storm hits, Do you know how to read the stars, or are you just looking at the surface?
That's the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep your eyes open. We'll see you on the next one.